The Russians are at it again. U.S. intelligence warns that Russia is meddling in the 2020 election. Duh. And they want to keep Trump in office. Double duh. Apparently, Trump is really upset about this, but not because of what the Russians are doing, but because he's afraid Adam Schiff and the Democrats will use this against him. Oh, yeah. This is his own intelligence community saying this. This is not some anti-Trump media talking about this. These are his people. So should Democrats be his biggest concern, or should the Russians be his biggest concern? As if we didn't know.
Well, the Russians certainly aren't a big concern of his if they are helping him get elected, as they already did.
Exactly.
And this has not stopped, right? We have known since 2016, we've known since 2015. Obama knew and should have done more than he did that the Russians were meddling. We have not stopped hearing all the warnings this entire time from U.S. intelligence agencies. Now, it is a damn shame and embarrassment that the President of the United States puts the word of the Russians and Vladimir Putin in front of the word of the U.S. intelligence agencies.
Right.
Yeah.
That is unacceptable. And this week it was compounded by him putting one of his loyalists with no intelligence experience as the director
Richard Grenell.
Of intelligence.
Who was the ambassador to Germany.
Yeah.
But also, can I just point out one thing, that the Republicans are complicit because last week the Republican Senate blocks 3 separate election security bills.
Yeah.
So they don't want to help it either.
Yeah, no, the cybersecurity stuff is they're vulnerable on. And the tragedy is, of course, when you think about classic Republican ideology in this country, I mean, stalwart, good stuff, committed to America, they were the best at pointing out the kind of commies who were hiding under the bush, the red baiting, and they were staunchly conservative in defending this country against the incursions of people who would stand in the Kremlin to try to manipulate American politics. Now they're being invited in. And you think about Obama, if Obama had had a white Russian drink in the Oval Office, he might have gotten impeached. Now you got a guy drinking with a white Russian and making all kinds of strange sounds like keeps Putin. And it just seems to be something that is attractive, and it's really problematic. It reflects poorly on Republicans and Democrats if we are an American culture invested in upholding a democratic value. That means we don't have cybersecurity jumping in, Russians determining what's going on.
Why does it reflect badly on Democrats?
Well, because when you said that Obama should have stepped up a bit earlier to say this is what's going on, he was loath to do so because he didn't want to have his thumb on the scales, to so to speak.
He didn't want it to look political.
He didn't want to look political, but the reality is that if you see something, say something. So both parties have to be held accountable, but especially given the history and the track record of Republicans who have red baited this country for so many years,
it seems odd.
This is a tragic.
Well, I think one of the reasons that Trump is also loath to do anything is because everyone questions the legitimacy of his presidency.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Because we know that Hillary Clinton got 3 million more votes, popular votes. And so I've always questioned the legitimacy of his presidency because of Russian involvement. Mueller said in 2016, he warned, "I will close by reiterating the central allegation of our indictments, that there were multiple systematic efforts to interfere in our election. That allegation deserves the attention of every American." He warned us in 2016, and now we know it's 2020. It continues to happen. It's going to happen again during this election. And so, you know, the fact that Trump not only put in Grenell as his national intelligence director, he fired McGuire, the one that was in place, because McGuire told the House members that Russia was interfering. And Trump became angry at that.
Yeah.
So rather than do something about it, he fired the person that sounded the alarm.
Right.
Yeah, it's tragic.
Look, it doesn't take a political scientist to see that Trump has a bizarre relationship with Putin. I think anyone that paid any attention to anything, Helsinki, the way he talks about Putin, I think most people and most classic Republicans, like you said, Mr. Dyson, consider it very alarming because we are traditionally an America First party. I think where I get uncomfortable is now we have Bernie Sanders saying that it's Russian bots that are responsible for his Bernie bros, and Twitter actually came out and said it's not, that you have a Bernie bro problem online and they're real people and it's not Bernie bots that are sent by Russia. And I would implore all people to take, when you're using Russia politically in one way or another, to take it seriously and not just use it quite frankly, just have a cop-out for why you have a bunch of misogynistic followers on Twitter.
As Russian dressing.
But, you know, I mean, it could frankly be, it could be both, right?
Yeah.
It is Bernie bros, it is definitely Bernie bros, but it could also be Russian bots. But I do think that Bernie
Well, Twitter
Sanders needs
actually
to
came
take...
out and said it's not.
Oh,
CEO of Twitter
the
came out
CEO
and said
Twitter doesn't have a very
Okay.
good record as far as I'm concerned, and Facebook has an even worse record. But what I do think is Bernie Sanders needs to take responsibility and be accountable for what he can do. And he needs to be able to do more because, look, you can say, yeah, but Trump gets away with that. That's true. But that's why we don't want Trump.
Right.
And we expect better and we expect more
Yeah.
from the people running against Trump. And that means they've got to be able to control the
The
misogynistic
Russians
attacks.
have a motive here, to hurt Bernie, too. It's divisive. It
is
continues
true, but
to
as a
divide
result of
Americans.
that, he should
Yeah.
be much more vigilant in saying, this is not who I am. Those people
Yeah.
who say they support me, they should not be doing this kind of thing because it reinforces the perception that Bernie Sanders is the flip side of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Two older white guys who are largely insensitive to racial paranoia and racial realities in this country.
Yeah.